Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to a game spotlight on Space Engineers. Dun 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 dun. Space Engineers is a pretty cool game that's been available on Steam for quite some time. It is still considered to be in alpha. There's a lot of features planned, a lot of things currently in the game, and I recently tweeted out a message on Twitter saying that I was kind of considering doing a bit of a Let's Play series on this game because I've been playing it off and on for a while now since it first hit the scene, and I've really enjoyed it, and I think it's gotten to the point now where there's enough stuff in the game that I could probably do a pretty exciting and fun Let's Play series about it. I did a straw poll, and a lot of people, about 20% or so, kind of indicated that they weren't familiar with Space Engineers and weren't too sure if they would be interested in checking it out. So here's a game spotlight to show you guys what Space Engineers is like, what it's all about. I'm going to cover just some of the basics and a few components, but to be clear, there's no way I could cover everything that Space Engineers currently has available, especially considering that there is an active modding community for it, and I do have a good handful of mods installed. So I'm going to try and just give you guys the basic gist of the game so you can see what it's all about. Then what I'm going to do is have a straw poll in the description of this video. Go look right now at it. And once you've watched the video, if you've not already decided whether or not you'd like to see a Let's Play, check out the video here, see if you like what the game is about, see if you'd be interested in doing a Let's Play series on it, and then we will potentially be doing one. So let's take a look at Space Engineers and what it's all about. As the name implies, Space Engineers is a game about being an engineer in space. As you can see, I'm currently flying around in space. How cool is this? The sun's up there. By the way, the sun does move throughout the sky. I've started on a... There's many different ways you can start Space Engineers. This map is called Easy Start, and the reason I chose this is because it's a already pre-made base that has a whole bunch of cool stuff that it's easy to show you guys just what Space Engineers is about. There's a bunch of different ways to actually play. They're just adding different like game type aspects to Space Engineers, so you can have like races and all kinds of other cool stuff. And then there's some obvious starts that have far less prepared. So this is the Easy Start. There is a ton of stuff available to just be able to jump in and play around with a little bit. So if you've never played the game and you want to kind of get a feel for it, this is the place to go. The main point of Space Engineers is building cool stuff. You can build bases, so you can see this area that I'm on right now is a giant base. Well, it's actually not that giant. You can also build ships, and there's a couple here, which I'll show you in a minute or two. And then you can build even larger ships. So this giant red thing over here is actually a giant large ship. It's pretty big, and we'll be checking that out too within this video. And then there's even a blue ship way out in the distance there that I'll be showing you guys. You also have asteroids in the game, and that's your main source of materials. So typically the way things work, if you're not starting on a map that has already a bunch of pre-made stuff, but even if you are, you're going to want to expand probably, you start off by checking out your asteroid, and there's a bunch of resources available on said asteroid. So right now we can see there's a lot of rock, obviously, but there's different kinds of materials that give you different things. So for example, if I were to look right here, we've got some ice. This ice is used to create oxygen, which you're going to need to breathe. You can also see there's some iron deep inside the asteroid, so if we were to drill inside, we'd be able to get to that iron, which is pretty neat. So if you wanted to mine, you simply get your drill, which you'll probably start off with, typically, and just start mining. And start digging through the asteroid, breaking through it. Pieces will break off, and you can pick them up. Cool. Stone's not going to be that useful, so why don't I turn on my light here so it's a little bit easier to see. This is iron, and if we were to mine through this stuff, we'd knock off a couple iron bits, and we'd want to pick them up. Be careful if you are in the presence of gravity, because they will start flying away from you. Typically, you're not going to start in an area that has gravity, but one of the things that Space Engineers does have is a block that goes on in stations or large ships called a gravity generator, which is pretty cool. It simulates gravity. So when I turn off my jetpack, I can walk around here. Obviously, I can turn my jetpack on to fly, and within the presence of gravity, we'll be stuck to the ground. But if there is no gravity, so for example, if I fly away from my station and it's gravity field, I have, without a jetpack on, the inability to move. So I'm kind of stuck as is. So there's nowhere to go, and there's no way to move if you don't have your jetpack outside of a gravitational field. So once you've got your stone that you've gone ahead and mined, you're going to want to refine it in a block called a refinery here. So we can go ahead and process the ore, and you can see it's processing the iron ore that we got into iron ingots. Nice. So I can kind of just throw all that stuff in there along with the stone, and it'll process down into some raw materials for us to use to start creating some blocks. Now, typically, mining by hand is going to be pretty tedious and boring, so one of the first things you're going to do is build some kind of mining ship. Space Engineers allows you to build ships piece by piece, and you can kind of build them however you want. You have a large list of blocks that you're able to build with. All kinds of cool stuff. I've also got some mods installed which add even more nifty things to play with. This block, or this ship here, is one of the pre-made mining ships that are available. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the cockpit here. Ta-da! And show you guys what it's like to fly this thing around. Now, if you're inside the cockpit, depending on how you've built your ship, it might be tricky to see. So you can also jump out into third-person view if you want. Nice. I can activate the drills one at a time, or I can set them up in a group to activate them both at the same time. And easily mine through the rock. Obviously, you're going to mine a lot faster in a ship with a couple drills on it. And you can build a ship with as many drills as you want, and as big of a ship as you want. Sweet. This ship happens to have a couple things on it, some reactors to power it, a cargo container to hold all the ores that we've picked up, as well as a few other things, including oxygen generators, so I can breathe, because that's kind of important. Once you've gone ahead and mined and you've got a bunch of stuff in your inventory, you might want to go ahead and bring it back to your base. So this particular block that I've got on the back of my ship is called a connector, and it can connect up with a block on a space station. So you can see here they've just turned yellow. I can activate my connector and they will turn green. These merges the two inventories of the ship and the station, and now we're able to transport those items from the cargo container in the ship, and it'll go ahead and send its way down through this tubing system and start refining the ores that we picked up. So you can see my refinery is running once again, and all the stone that I had picked up is currently being refined. So there's a nifty little tubing system to transport items around, much better than doing it by hand. Now currently I'm in creative mode, so I can kind of build whatever I want without any resources. And I'm going to show you some of the examples of building mechanics that you can come up with. So if you want to create a ship, you just open up your menu here and choose new, small, or large ship. And if you want to build a new space station, you could do that as well. New ship starts off with a landing gear, of course. You can go ahead and place your blocks down, one block at a time. So there's a bunch of different blocks here, right? So right now I've got the heavy armor block. I'm actually just going to use light armor blocks. Right click to remove, left click to place, left click and control to bring out like a single line, left click and shift to build a plane. Nice. So a basic ship is going to need a few things to get up and running. You're going to need a cockpit in order to sit in. Sometimes, not necessarily actually, believe it or not. I'll show you that in a minute. You're also going to need some gyroscopes. Gyroscopes are going to help your ship turn and manage itself. You'll also need a reactor, something to give your ship fuel. I'm going to place my nuclear reactor right there. And inside the nuclear reactor, you're going to want to place some uranium. Uranium is an ore that you'll find in the world. You might have some laying around here. Let's see. Any uranium hanging out? Yeah, there's some uranium in a reactor here I'll snag. You're not going to want to run out of uranium, by the way. So that'll give your ship some power and the ability to steer, but you're going to need some thrusters in order to move. So I'm just going to place down some basic thrusters here. So you need one on every direction that you want to move. So in total, you're going to need at least 6 thrusters to be able to move in all 6 directions, up, down, left, right, forward, and backward. And they all have to be facing the appropriate way. So obviously I'm being a little bit sloppy about my thruster placement, but this is just for demonstration purposes. Cool. So far my ship should be able to move forwards and backwards, and left and right, but we're also going to let him move up and down. So let's place a thruster facing upwards, and a thruster facing downwards. Cool. At this point, I should be able to fly around. So if I remove my landing gear, ta-da, I have a pretty ugly spaceship, but it can move, and that's what counts. Now, if I want to be able to mine something, I'm obviously going to need a drill. And that can go there. I can then activate my drill, with a button on the toolbar. I'm going to set this drill to toggle on and off every time I hit the button. And there we go. You'll notice obviously the drill causes a little bit of shaking of my ship, but more thrusters and gyroscopes can help offset that. If you want to store some stuff, you're going to want a cargo container. Cool. And if you want to be able to transfer items around, you're going to need a conveyor system. So conveyor tubes, there's two types, regular sized and smaller sized. I'm going to go ahead and use the smaller sized ones and hook this up to a drill. Now anything that the drill picks up and stores in its own internal inventory slot will automatically be transferred into the cargo hold. Awesome. Let's give this little ugly ship a spin, shall we? Because I've removed and replaced my drill, I'm going to have to go ahead and move this guy down there. And we'll set him to toggle on and off. Neat. And as you can see, the stone is landing in the medium cargo container. Now, since this is creative mode, I can also copy and paste any ship that I make. Sweet. So if I wanted to have multiples of these ships for some reason, I could easily copy and paste the entire ship all in one go. If I really like the ship, then I can open up a blueprint screen and save it. So this is built into the game. You have the ability to save your blueprints. I can create one from the clipboard, or I can download some that other players have made on Steam. What I think is really cool about this is if I start doing a Let's Play series, and if you guys like Space Engineers, I can upload some of my cool ships that I've made to Steam, and you guys will be able to download them very easily just by browsing the Steam workshop. It's all for free, so you can just go in, browse it, find anything I've made, click a button, and then it'll show up here on the screen. Cool, right? And then you can go ahead and do all kinds of cool stuff. So if I wanted to, I could create from clipboard, and there we've got a new small ship stored. So if I wanted to, anytime that I wanted to use the ship again, I just double click and paste it into the world. Sweet. So let's take a look at one of the ships that I've made that I think I'm actually kind of proud of. This is a more advanced ship, obviously. This is a welding ship. We haven't talked about welding yet, but I'll tell you about that once we switch over to survival mode. But this is a nifty little ship that I've made. It is, as you can see, not designed for a pilot. There is no cockpit. It's just a small, compact drone that's meant to be flown remotely. One of the blocks available in the game is a remote control block. You can see it right there behind the camera. The camera lets you look through it, and the remote control block allows you to remotely control the ship. So if I activate this thing, I can also do it remotely just by opening up my inventory and selecting it from a drop-down list. So if we do this, we should see the dire welder, and I have access to everything within the ship. I can control it remotely, just like so. Cool. And I can also, if I want to, look through the camera. Hey, there's me. Hey, Direwolf, how's it going? Cool. And then I can fly the ship around even though I'm not inside the cockpit. Very nifty. This ship has a couple purposes. We'll take a look at that maybe once we switch into survival mode. But I wanted to show you guys a ship that I've made that I think is pretty slick, and also, the concept of remote control. So now that we've seen the space station and a couple small ships, let's take a look at one of the larger capital ships. This thing is huge. We can pop in through this door here. We're going to want to close the door behind us because I believe that this ship is pressurized with oxygen. So you'll notice on the bottom right-hand side, my oxygen just switched from high, or from none to high. And if a door was open here, for example, we'd have no oxygen. Cool. Neato. Ta-da! So in here, I don't have to wear a helmet, so I can take my helmet off. Let's see. Nice. There I am. No need to wear a helmet indoors when there's oxygen. I like it. And then we can just walk around inside this ship. So there's a bunch of stuff. This is an air vent that is what's pressurizing this room with oxygen. You can have cargo containers in here, obviously. Let's go find the cockpit, shall we? Obviously, the people who created this ship have a little bit more design sense than Direwolf does. I think these are blast doors. They keep in oxygen, but you can use them to fly ships out of. Very cool stuff. Also, I don't know my way around the ship very well. I'm guessing that if we head off in this direction, we should find a cockpit at some point. There are a lot of doors on this ship. Okay, this leads to the outside. Oh, hey, here's a controller. Nice. I can use this to fly the ship. Obviously, there's a couple control pads. I've found one in the back, it looks like, but there is one in the front here that has windows. Let me see if I can find my way up to that one. Ah, lucky me. Whoa. Yeah, that room was pressurized. If we close the door, it should repressurize in here pretty quickly. You can see the indicator on the top there indicates how much pressure is inside the room. And there we go. Nice. That's cool. You still might want to fly your capital ships from outside, but you can definitely see there's some neat stuff here. I like it. Let's go for a spin, shall we? Taking off. Whoosh. Capital ships obviously much heavier. You're going to need much larger thrusters, and you're not going to be able to move quite so fast unless you do have a lot of thrusters on here. But yeah, we've got a very large ship. You can attach small ships to large ones, hold them in docking bays, and that kind of cool stuff. So I'm briefly going to set a GPS coordinate. I will name it new coordinate. Actually, I want to do new from current position, and I will call it home. That sounds good. The reason I want to do that is because I want to show you guys one of the newest features added, which is the jump drive. Cool. So there's two types of jumps you can do. You can either do a blind jump, or if you want, you can use some GPS coordinates. Awesome. I'm going to do a blind jump in a certain direction, basically the direction I'm facing, and I'm going to pump in enough power to go about, 400 kilometers? That sounds good. 408, 414, sure. Why not? So let's see. Jump drive 1 is the one we want to activate. So let's do it. Yep, we're doing a blind jump, 414 kilometers away. Ship will jump in 10 seconds. Nice. 5 remaining. 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice. So that's a pretty new feature, like I said. They literally just added jump drives a little bit ago. But you're going to be able to explore more of the system that you're in. Obviously, there's a bunch of asteroids around, and there's just plenty of cool stuff. And you can see we're 414 kilometers away. There is my home space station. Wow, that is really far away. Now, I think before we can jump again, this jump drive is going to need to recharge. So you can see it's charging up. It's going to take a couple minutes here, 2 more minutes before it's fully recharged. So I'll let that happen. But in the meantime, I'm going to select my home coordinate. There we go. So our destination GPS coordinates are home, so I should be able to get back there. And we'll be back in a minute or two when it's ready and charged up for another jump. All right, looks like my jump drive is pretty much ready to be jumping again. So fully charged, current input 0. Let's do another jump home. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sweet. And I'm right back home. It gets you pretty close to the jump coordinates that you've punched in. It's not going to land you directly on top of them. It's going to make sure that you don't crash into any asteroids or other things nearby. But within about 1,000 meters is not too bad. You can easily cover that with your normal thrusters. You can see my speed on the bottom right is increasing. Cool. I should probably warn you guys that collisions are a thing. You're going to want to be careful as you're flying through space. Oh boy. I just smashed my ship into an asteroid. Yeah, bad things can definitely happen when you're in space. If this wasn't creative mode, by the way, I absolutely would have died from that. There are weapons as well, so there are some enemy ships that you might navigate into or find flying around. You can go fight them. Obviously, they'll be armed with some automatic weapons. You can see one there. That's kind of tracking and looking for enemy ships. You can use to defend your base, or you can just load up some stuff and let loose. Nice. Clearly, ships do a pretty good job of breaking apart and falling down once they've been destroyed a bit. See you later, solar panels. Very cool. So now that we've seen a little bit of creative mode, let's go ahead and switch to survival and just see, what we're in for. In a survival world, things work a little differently. Your character has a limited amount of things he can carry, so don't expect to be able to walk over to any cargo container and pick up everything that's inside of it. Eventually, your character's volume will fill up, and he won't be able to collect any more items. Good to know. You're also not going to be able to place blocks directly in the world and just have them immediately functional. For example, if I wanted to place a light armor block, as we saw earlier, light armor blocks kind of just landed in the world and were available, like so. Now, it just places a frame of that block down, and you need to weld it using ingredients. You'll notice on the bottom right hand of my screen, it's telling me I need about 25 steel plates in total for this block to become fully formed. I've got about 110 in my inventory at this moment. So 24 more. You'll notice that it automatically applies all the steel plates to the block, and then I can weld it up. And now it's fully formed, and it used up those steel plates. If I didn't want this block to be here anymore, I could grind it down, and I'll get all those steel plates back. So the grinding process is a nice way to get back anything or recycle what you don't need anymore. Sweet. Different blocks require different things, as you can see. So for example, I know that I'm going to need a particular block to place these down, so let's go get some. I think I need some large steel tubes in order to place down thrusters. So if I want to get a thruster here and add another thruster to my ship so that it has more maneuverability, I could easily do that. But I can't just easily remove the block that's there. First, I have to grind it down. You can see a small armor block only requires one steel plate. So smaller blocks, obviously far less resources than a larger block. And the small thruster here requires a steel plate, a large steel tube, thruster components, and construction components. Let's see if I have all that available in this cargo container. There's some thruster components, so I'll just snag one of them. And some construction components, I'll snag one of those as well. I now have a working thruster, and continuing the weld process just reinforces the armor so that it's fully welded up, so that if it takes any damage, it will be able to resist it and not be destroyed right away. In order to create these components that you need for building everything, that's done in the assembler block. So the assembler takes the raw ingredients, the ores that you have, for example. So let's use an example of iron. If I wanted to, I could place my iron in my assembler, go to my production tab here, and tell it to make 10 steel plates. You'll see it tells me we need about 200 and something iron. So it's now converting that iron into steel plates for me. Sweet. And then I can use these steel plates to build more cool stuff. So if I was doing a Let's Play series on this game, I would definitely be playing in survival mode, and we'd be building ships, mining ores, building space stations, building complex processes for refining and assembling, and a whole bunch of other cool things. I've only shown you maybe a tenth of what's available in Space Engineers so far. There's a lot more to do here. Let's take a look at a couple more things before we have to wrap up the video. So one of the nifty blocks, or at least what I think is a pretty nifty block in this game, is called the rotor. This thing is kind of cool. It's a movable block that allows you to do a bunch of cool things. Let's check it out. I'm going to get a control pad here and show you what you can do with this thing. Let's take a look. So right now we've got a rotor. The rotor allows you to go ahead and apply different amounts of torque, velocity, and how far the rotor can move. And basically, you can cause the rotor to rotate blocks. Cool. So there's a lot of different uses for this. If you want to use this for controlling doors, if you want to use this for controlling welders. So for example, if we were welding something, we might want to weld all around it, and we could just attach this welder to the end of this block. Nice. And then the welder can weld things all around it. Very cool. And you can set up all kinds of settings. So if you want it to only go out a certain amount, so for example, if we wanted it to only go halfway instead of continuously spin, we would set its lower limit at 0 and its upper limit at, say, 180. So once it hits 180, it should no longer be allowed to move. Nice. And then if we wanted to, we could also reverse it. cool. You can also set up button panels. These button panels can be programmed to do specific things. So for example, if I wanted to have it modify my rotor settings, so right here I just drag the rotor down, and you'll see the 1, 2, 3, and 4 buttons correspond to the 4 buttons on this panel. So if I wanted to tell it that every time I pressed this button, the rotor will reverse itself. So we just say rotor reverse. Now when I press the button, the rotor will reverse. Press it again, and it'll reverse again. Neat. Another cool block is this thing called a piston. Pistons are very neat. You can adjust all kinds of settings for your piston here. I'll show you some of them now. So if we go into our piston control panel, we can see that you can affect the velocity, the maximum distance it's allowed to extend to, and the minimum distance it's allowed to extend to. And by hitting reverse, we'll allow this piston to extend. Nice. If we wanted it to move a little bit faster, which might not be a terrible idea, we could just bump up the velocity so we can go 2 meters a second. Awesome. And then of course we can program it again. So if we came in here, we could have our piston set up to reverse when I press the button. You can also do things like turn it on and off, only extend or only retract, adjust the velocity, increase the maximum distance, or decrease it. All kinds of neat stuff you can do with the buttons, so that now when I press the button here, it'll simply retract the piston. Cool. And you can set up all kinds of logic around this. There's a programmable block. So I don't want to scare people away who are afraid of programming stuff, but those of you who are interested in programming, there is an in-game programmable block. That's really neat. You can write C# code in here and have it do all kinds of things, from tracking the items in your inventory to manipulating these blocks. Let me show you a quick demonstration of that. Just like you can upload ship blueprints to the Steam Workshop, you can also upload code. So you can see a bunch of different pieces of code that I've downloaded here to play around with. Configurable automatic LCDs is a very nice piece of code. Let's go ahead and compile this. I didn't have to write a single line of code. I just browsed the workshop and grabbed this. That's all there was to it. What this program does is it's able to read the inventory of all the cargo holds you have in your system, and when I run the program, it's going to spit out information about it. Awesome. So I've just adjusted the LCD here to tell me information about the ingots I have. So we can see I've got a bit of iron, nickel, cobalt, and the lines there tell me how much I have in comparison to what's defined as the maximum amount. If I wasn't, worried about the maximum amount, or I could change that, it's very easy to use this guy's code. The program here is pretty slick, actually. I just tell it pretty much what I want it to tell me about, and then every time the program is run, it's going to go ahead and update that information. Nice. What you'll probably do with this is create what's called a timer block. These are very cool and useful blocks. They can do certain functions on a regular schedule. So for example, let's modify this timer block's configuration. I'm going to set him to every 10 seconds. We will reverse the piston that we set up. Cool. And now I'm going to start the timer block. So in 10 seconds, the piston should reverse. Let's see what happens. So obviously with the timer block, no programming required, right? 10 seconds, he went ahead and reversed. Nice. Now if I wanted him to continuously loop, all we have to do is the following. Go in here, set up actions. After you do the piston reverse, go ahead and activate the timer block again. So reverse the piston, activate the timer block. Reverse the piston, activate the timer block. So if I hit start again after 10 seconds, he's going to reverse the piston, and then he's going to start another 10-second countdown and reverse it again. So there's a lot of logic you can build in here. So we can see that the piston just reversed itself, another 10-second countdown has started, and the piston's going to reverse again. And it'll do that forever until I tell it to stop. So I can go over here, access my timer block, and tell him to stop. Nice. Another really cool thing are sensors. So I've got a sensor set up over here. The reason I've got this sensor set up on my drone is that the welders here will damage players if you're not in creative mode and they're turned on. So I've set up this sensor to look for players within 10 meters on all sides, including in front. we have it set to detect players, not floating objects or small ships or large ships or stations or asteroids, but you could detect those as well individually. So if I wanted to detect asteroids in front, I could automatically turn on drills, for example. Or if I wanted to detect a small ship in front, I could automatically turn on the welders or something like that. But instead, I'm just detecting players, and I'm telling it that when I do detect a player, to take the welders and turn them off. Nice. So that if the welders are on, so I'll do that now, we're going to turn the welders on, and you should see them glowing red. Red is bad. It hurts. If a player gets nearby, automatically turns off, because a player entered the range of the sensor. Cool. So there's lots of nifty things in Space Engineers. Again, I've probably shown you maybe half of it. I would like to show you more. So if you're interested in seeing a Let's Play on this game, it'll all be in survival mode. I'll be showing you guys a lot of the different features and functionality that this game has, and I think you'd probably enjoy it. So go ahead for me, vote in the description of this video if you'd like to see a Let's Play series. I should warn you that I probably wouldn't be able to do a Let's Play in addition to all my other Let's Plays. My basic plan for this is, if you guys want to see this, I would probably wind up once my single-player Let's Play series of Minecraft is wrapped up. 1.7 I think we've kind of done a lot with, and it looks like mods might be a while for 1.8, or they might even be skipping to 1.9. So I think I might do a Space Engineer series in lieu of the single-player series that I've got going on currently. You know, I'll wrap it up obviously properly, and we'll have the proper wrap up, and then once it's done, we might check out the Space Engineers game. So for now, Direwolf 20 wrapping up the Space Engineers game spotlight. Hey, if you like it, go ahead, like I said, vote on a Let's Play series. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you've never seen the game before, I think it's pretty neat, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Alright guys, Direwolf 20 signing off. Take it easy.